My name is Jiles Smith, and welcome to Our Community. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for being a guest on our show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for coming.
Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I'm the Auditor-Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector for the County of San Bernardino. I've been doing that for about 16 years now and was on the Board of Supervisors before that. And my background was in city government, city council member, mayor. I'm also an attorney and an accountant, and I was in the Naval Reserve for a while, but that ended some time ago.
So you're like a Renaissance man. You can do a little bit of everything, huh?
Well, I enjoy a lot of different things, and it's been a very interesting career.
Well, you just kind of talked about being an attorney, but also know you went back and got your CPA as well, right?
Well, I did. I technically, I'm not a CPA. I've passed the exam. I've still got some paperwork to do.
Oh, okay.
And my job has kept me a little too busy, but that's my New Year's resolution for this year. So.
Keep up your resolutions, okay?
Thank you.
Can you tell us more about your different departments? You were the Auditor-Controller first. Let's talk about that.
Well, the Auditor-Controller has a number of divisions. It's two of the major things we do that a lot of people would recognize. We pay the payroll for the county. We pay about 18,000 employees every 2 weeks. That is virtually 100% electronic transfer now. When I took office 16 years ago, I said from here on out all the new employees go electronic, and we gradually convinced folks that were around to move over. We also pay the county's bills, and it's a little bit larger challenge to get all the county's vendors to set up for electronic payment, but we're pushing that as well. And we do a number of other things too. We keep the county's books and prepare the annual financial report that is provided to the board, to the public, and to the folks on Wall Street who have loaned us money, and a number of other people, anyone that's interested, frankly. So we report the county's finances to the public. And there are other activities as well. We do internal audits. So I have an audit division that goes out and takes a look at what's happening throughout the county here and there. We assess risk. We see which departments have higher risk, lower risk, and we emphasize the higher risk areas. And we just take a snapshot of different places in the county and try to make sure that they're doing what the policies or the laws or other governing statutes say they should be doing.
And how about the Treasury Department?
Well, the Treasury it holds a lot of money, not only for the county, but also for a lot of school districts and some other agencies which the law says are required to keep their cash in the Treasury pool, as it's called. The Treasury pool in San Bernardino County holds between $4 and $5 billion. It's been over $5 billion some, but it's generally within that range. And we invest that fairly short term. That's the money that if the average citizen has a checkbook and a savings account, you try to keep enough in the checking account to make sure your bills are going to be paid, but you keep more of it in the savings account where you make a little more interest. So this is the pool where people's money is until they actually spend it. We have people tracking cash flows. We know how much money is going to go out. We know when payroll is going to hit, so that we always bring enough cash out of the investments and into the bank for paying checks that day. And so the Treasury office both invests the money and gets the maximum return possible. And with low interest rates that we've had for the last few years, there's not a lot of return there, but there's some. And they also manage cash flow so that when we pay bills every day, when we pay payroll every 2 weeks, there's enough cash in the bank ready to go for that day to pay those bills. There's a lot of money moving through that system, and we've got some people that do it very well.
What about the tax collection?
Well, everybody, a lot of people have experience with the tax collector, and I think technically what we do is we send out bills. The assessor is a different office, and the assessor is the person who decides, who makes a determination of what a property's value is. The standard situation is a person buys a home, And typically, the assessed valuation is going to be 1% of the price. So if you pay $300,000 for a house, the assessed valuation is going to be $3,000. Excuse me, the assessed valuation is going to be the $300,000 you paid. The tax at 1% is going to be the $3,000. So that's pretty easy to figure out what your assessed valuation is going to be if you bought a house. You just look at the purchase price. But the assessor technically has the authority to look into any property and say, well, your purchase price is one piece of evidence, we'll consider others, and we'll come to a professional determination of value. Every July 1st, the assessor sends the assessment roll. Roll is an old-time term for a list of properties. They send it over to us. So they've decided the value. We apply the tax rates that have been adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and we send out the bills telling people this is how much property tax you owe. And in our system that's somewhat antiquated or old-fashioned, people have the opportunity to pay either all at once or half now and half in December and half in April. And those are actually not the due dates, those are the last days to pay without penalty. So we also send the money, the tax collector sends the money back over to the Auditor-Controller, and one more job the Auditor-Controller side does is distribute that tax money to all the taxing agencies in the county. The county itself only receives about 11 or 12% of all the property tax we collect. The rest is distributed to cities, school districts, special districts, and frankly to the state too. There are some programs where the state takes some of the property tax and moves it around.
See, the average citizen doesn't know that. They just assume all the taxes go to the county.
Well, we have enough, there's a lot of discussion in the world today about, property tax. It used to be a much larger percentage of local government financing. That ended with Prop 13.
Exactly.
A large amount of revenue went away back in 1978 when Prop 13 passed. And that kind of reverberates through the system today, but the system has changed a lot so that people don't remember that a lot.
Now, you had tons of experience working for the county government and city government. Why did you run for this office?
Well, I had been involved as an elected official, city council, mayor, county supervisor, and there were the things that got me motivated were open space preservation, dealing with residential development, and then transportation has been a huge issue, but it was very big in the late 80s, early 90s. I was on the first board of directors at MetroLink when we set up the Regional Rail Authority, providing commuter rail from San Bernardino and Riverside all the way through to Ventura and all the way up to Lancaster and Palmdale. Then the more I got into a lot of different issues, the more I saw that finance and the importance of finance and good financial information was there in every issue that we dealt with. I, just as a matter of personal interest at the beginning, started taking some classes in finance and ended up more in accounting. And about the time I finished with the sequence of accounting courses I had decided to take and took and passed the CPA exam, that was about the time when I came to the realization that the incumbent auditor-controller recorder had decided to retire. That was he was going to retire at the end of his term. The 98 election, and so I spoke to him, spoke to some other people, and felt like moving in the direction of auditor-controller was consistent with what I'd been doing in the last few years and would be another interesting thing and some very important issues to accomplish and some very important standards to uphold.
I like what you just said about that, and I kind of wanted you to elaborate, but a lot of public officials, they run for office and they have the best intentions, but they don't know the complications of government financing. And what key things have you learned in this office to help you kind of, go through that whole system?
Well, I had made it my business to learn a lot about the finances of the county. I remember taking a class in government accounting, and the assignment was go find an annual financial report, which I now produce for San Bernardino County. Go find one of those from a local city or county, bring it in, and we'll talk about it next week. So I just went back to my office and got the county annual financial report and took it back to class. Now it turned out to be about 10 times as thick as a lot of the city annual financial reports that other folks brought in. But I just felt that it was an extension of what I'd already begun to do. When you really want to know what can we accomplish, how much of it can we accomplish, what are our priorities. You start talking about financing. When department heads come to you and say, if you give me the money to do this project, I will generate this much return. And I used to ask myself, okay, how are you going to come back and prove that you got that return? What kind of financial measurements are we going to have for this? So when I got into it, I just came to the conclusion and we also went through some difficult times during that period with some people hiding things, stealing from the county, conspiring to do some side deals. And it seemed to me that an aggressive auditor-controller could potentially have an impact on that.
But many roles in the county government, we've actually talked about that, well, county and city. How have those roles helped you develop yourself in this role?
Well, the major difference between this position that I'm in now and serving on the Board of Supervisors or as a council member is those positions are largely decision-oriented. The job of a mayor or of a Board of Supervisors member is basically to come to meetings and make decisions, set policy, if you will. My job is an elected position, so it's sort of a hybrid of the two, because when you're looking at the county's chief executive officer, that's an administrative position. The Board of Supervisors is a legislative position, and the board sets policy. The CEO is in charge of the organization that carries it out. I am both an administrator and executive who carries out policy. We deliver paychecks, we deliver checks to vendors, we produce a lot of activity, but at the same time, I wear a lot of different hats. When I'm investing the money in the Treasury pool, I have a fiduciary responsibility, a financial legal responsibility to all the people who have money in that thing, not just the county. When I collect property taxes and distribute them to cities, school districts, and the county, my obligation is to all of those people and to the taxpayers to run a fair system where everybody gets treated appropriately. So I have to have a certain amount of independence from the county itself, because many of my roles are larger than that. And so I act as an elected official. I set policy. There are some areas where the state statute gives me the authority to make certain decisions. And we're very careful around here to make sure we know who has authority and under what authority we're acting in any given situation. So I think the more different roles I've been in, I was on the original board of directors at Metrolink, as I mentioned before. I was involved later in setting up a joint powers authority dealing with electronic recording of real estate documents. That agency now has 10 county members, and a number of other counties are receiving service from that organization. So, I've just tried to learn as I went along, and my legal background has helped because I'm in a position to understand how things are structured sometimes in terms of the law, or how to interpret statutes and that sort of thing. I think it's all just kind of contributed to a growing sense of how complex things are, but also how much our job really gets down to just making sure we understand what the issue is and then making a decision that appears to be the best for the vast majority of our constituents.
You sure you don't want some? It's chamomile. Listen, you are extremely terrifying. Just the scariest undead subhuman thing on TV, and I really mean that. But I am worried that you could give my kids nightmares if they see you, so I'm gonna have to block you. So that's it. Oh, and tell the zombies they're blocked too.
Welcome back to Our Community, brought to you by the CYAP.
Your department received a couple of key awards recently. Can you tell us about those?
Well, we received 3 awards. 2 of them were very closely related. The Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA is the acronym, is an organization that provides nationwide, actually I think it includes Canada maybe too, but it's a wide coverage organization that exists to advance good procedures in accounting. Basically, it's finance officers, and they have a number of awards. The 2 that you're referring to are the award for outstanding financial reporting. Our Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR is the acronym. We received that award, I think it's about the 29th year in a row this office has received it. I observed to a board member the other day that I've gotten to the point where more than half of them are in my administration now. But that demonstrates the long-standing reputation this office has had for doing good financial reporting. The second is newer because it's for popular annual financial report. We take an annual financial report that's about an inch thick, and we compress it down into we actually edit it down into a 16-page document that basically is something the average citizen can pick up and get kind of a snapshot of what that annual financial report says in a lot more detail. So the popular annual financial report is designed to be accessible to the average person. A lot of graphs, a lot of comparative information, and we worked hard on that. It took us about 2 or 3 years to win that award the first time, but I think we've got about 5 or 6 consecutive awards now. And I think that award demonstrates my current staff's ability to get in and visualize what it would look like and provide that kind of information. And I think that's available on our website at this point in time. So anybody in the county can go online. The county's website is sbcounty.gov, real simple. I think if you put a /ATC on it, then you get to Auditor-Controller, Treasurer Tax Collector, and should be able to find the popular annual financial report there. The third item was an award the State Controller's Office gives out every year, and we've been getting that for 5 or 6 years too. So,
what are you doing in your office to ensure transparency? I clearly can tell that your financial awards dictate that you're doing it right. But again, we always worry about transparency in government. What are you doing specifically?
well, doing that financial report, and particularly the popular financial report, are examples of that. Actually, I should mention, it's not a report this office gets an award, but the county administrative office has received that same organization's award for outstanding budgeting. And that's been happening now for about 4, 5, 6 years as well. I used to complain about the county's budget. It appeared to be designed to not give information readily. And more than once, when I would receive the annual financial report award, I would remind the board that there's also an award for outstanding budgeting, and my office would be glad to assist if the administrative office ever wanted to pursue that award. I had some ideas about how the budget could be more clear. That offer was never taken up, but the administrative office has done a good job in recent years of opening up the budget process. So we're involved in that wherever we can be. And I must say that the administrative office right now is about as open as I've seen since I've been here. And so our audits are designed to look into things and put the light on whatever's there. We salute good practices, and we note practices that are not what they should be. Just about everything we do is really focused on making sure information is accurate, making sure it's available. Our website is always a work in progress, but we have the audit reports for the last many years now, probably 6 to 10 years, maybe more. On my department website, we have our annual financial report on the website. I think the budget is on the county's website. And we try to put a large array of things on the website. The key, as evidenced with the popular annual financial report, is when you're dealing with the finances of an organization with a $4 billion budget, there are 2 issues with transparency. Number 1, putting the information out there, and number 2, putting it out there in a way that presents an understandable piece of information to the person who wants to look at the website. If we put it out there in the annual financial report with all the roll-ups and columns and everything, it would be somewhat hard to follow. But we try to present information in different ways because different people get more out of one type of information or another. And anything we can do to get the information about what the county's doing out to the public, we're looking for ways to do it.
Well, running a department that's so large and has so many different unique tasks, what are some of the challenges that you have?
Well, one challenge is that we're not a well-known department. There was a commercial years ago by a company who basically said, we don't do anything that you'd recognize, but we put the materials together for those companies that do something that you'd recognize. That's the way I feel. We don't put cops on the street. We pay the payroll so that the cops can go out on the street. We don't operate a bunch of direct customer service, but we make sure all the goods that are purchased are paid for, and we have a large part to play with the underlying financial support for everything that goes on in the county. We operate in this department the systems, the tax collection system and the treasurer system, and the treasurer doesn't just invest that money. The treasurer operates the banking system so that we operate through in dealing with all of our bank accounts, getting all the money the county takes in deposited into the bank accounts and all that sort of thing. So we provide all those behind the scenes things that hopefully make everything run smoothly, so that all those direct service providers, whether it's fire department, sheriff's office, planning department, or a wide range of other activities, can be provided to the public. So our major clients are other county departments that we serve so that they can serve the public.
When I was looking through and preparing for this interview, looking on the website, it talked about legally mandated duties that you have. What was the difference? What's these legally mandated duties?
Well, the first job back in 1850 or shortly thereafter, the first job a county auditor, which was the title at the time, had was to make sure that the bills were paid, but that the appropriation for expenses were not exceeded. If this department had, I'm not sure what numbers would be appropriate back then, $5,000 allocated for annual expenses, it was the county auditor's job to make sure that department did not go over $5,000. We still do that today. Our system today is somewhat out of date, but it does have a feature that just doesn't allow a check to be written if it's going to exceed the appropriation for that department, for that area. We've had, as things get more complex, there are times when expenditures are necessary that will require adjustments to the budget. And so we've had to work out some details on that. In fact, we are right now in the development stages of a new financial accounting system that will bring us a couple of generations ahead and allow us to operate more efficiently and also provide much more extensive management information to the board and to the administration, but also I think we'll be able to open up what we can provide to the public in terms of available information from the financial system. But we're in an early stage of a project that's going to spread over a number of years in that regard. So the legislative duties, actually I have a legislative duty to write the paychecks for every teacher in San Bernardino County. And in that case, what occurred almost a decade before I took this office, there was an arrangement between this office and the superintendent of schools that was blessed by the Board of Supervisors, in which that duty was assigned to the superintendent of schools. So even though it's legislatively a duty of the auditor-controller, it's been contractually sent over to the superintendent of schools. The idea being that the superintendent of schools is in contact with all those school districts, and so that's a good fit. That's something that occurred long before I became auditor-controller, and I still retain an oversight function over that activity. So there are a number of different statutory, for example, the tax collector has the responsibility of collecting taxes for the county and for everyone else. The treasurer has the legal responsibility to invest money for a stated list of agencies. Some county treasurers will take money from people who are not required to be in the pool and invest their money as well. The policy of this treasury pool has been, and it's been, the wisdom of it has been demonstrated by the Orange County situation. If we don't take deposits from people who are optional, then we don't run nearly the risk of having people make a run on the bank, if you will. if there's a perception that something's going wrong. The bankruptcy in Orange County in 1994 was perhaps not caused, but certainly made a lot worse by a lot of people who had money in the Treasury pool. The appearance was that the Treasury pool was having problems, so a lot of people started pulling their money out of the Treasury pool, and that just puts more pressure on a pool that had long investments and short obligations and was having trouble meeting its short-term obligations, even though it had a lot of money in long-term deposits. So we try to be very conservative in those kinds of financial policies, and those are just some of the legislative duties that we have. Some of the well, I enjoy what I feel like Willie Mays. You know, he said, I love my job, and it's amazing that I'm able to make a living at it as well. I really do enjoy. I mean, I can be working one day with auditor-controller issues. I can be on another day on tax collector. And we're just looking down the horizon past the new financial accounting system. There's a new property tax collection system in the works. I'd like to bring that one into I used to say bring it into the 20th century, bring it into the 21st century. There are some really outdated things about that system in terms of the business practices that it runs by, as well as the technology that we're currently employing. But we're always trying to look down the road and get ready for things that are going to happen in the future, as well as take care of the business that we're working on today. And our commitment, I've likened this office to a watchdog. I've likened it to a lighthouse. But our job is to hold up the standards of the county, to advise the policymakers, to generate information and analysis for the administrators. And I have never been more pleased than I am today about the quality and the level of people that are working for me in this office, from the assistant treasurer, from the assistant auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collectors, to the division chiefs and the managers, and all the way down to everybody in this organization. We're working very hard, and we're doing it in a very, very capable fashion, and I'm really proud of my organization.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.